theme in the auto industry. Let me introduce Rhett and Jared Ricart.
I'm the youngest. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Well, I'm the younger Ricart. Thanks, Michael. I see a lot of friends here, familiar faces. And, you know, I guess you could ask everyone in this room. Everybody's had a car. You have to address your audience, right? Everybody's had a car. But the auto industry is the second largest tax provider for the state of Ohio on the sales tax. Yeah, it has its own line budget. Any of you are familiar with politics, it has its own line budget. So it's very important. We're also the second largest parts manufacturer, automotive parts manufacturing state in the United States, next to that state up north. So it's a gigantic impact on the state of Ohio. But I know everyone's going to want to ask, I like to have question and answers on this, but I'd like to thank you all for giving us the opportunity to help you with the education. Our family believes in cancer and it believes in education. Those are the two main focal points. Started with my father, wow, 70 years ago. You know, we have a shortage of technicians, we have a shortage of laborers, we have a shortage of everything. But the biggest problem is the education process we have in the United States and the education of our kids coming up. So to give them a fair chance, to give them a future, I think that I'd like to thank you for giving us that opportunity to be part of this program. We're also doing a program which is what many people, some of the family members have questioned me on this one, but we're teaming up with the Urban League. We're getting some for future technicians in the service industry. Jared's going to manage us with them to be able to handle those that have been incarcerated for nonviolent crimes, et cetera, but they need a chance. So we have working with the Urban League. We're going to start off with about 6 of them, and we're going to work with them and mentor them and work them just like the program you have. So Jared can explain a little bit more of that to you too. But I know everybody wants to ask me about electric vehicles, and I'll be here for that question too. I have a pretty good 80,000-foot view and a pretty granular view. I just got back from Vietnam looking at the manufacturing process for batteries over there. So, but I'll let Jared talk about the technicians. So go ahead.
Okay. Well, I could speak. Is this one on?
Yes.
You can hear me. Scott introduced it as the most interesting time of the in the automotive industry, and I say that for a multitude of reasons. I mean, for 100 years, it was just what kind of cylinder combination are we going to have? What kind of new, gadget are we going to have on the interior of a car? The whole landscape of the automotive industry is turning on its head, and it can go a multitude of different directions. Now we have disruptors that are in the business of, you have BYD in China, you have Tesla, you have E-Canoe, you have a bunch of Rivian, a bunch of disruptors, and you have the mainstays, which is the Fords, the GMs, the Toyotas. So with the hybrid era, electric vehicles, internal combustion engines, we're facing a very, very interesting time because there's no set path of where we're going to be going. I think we're going to progression of a hybrid to electric, but I'll hit on what my dad said. Everybody's car out there that's sitting in the parking lot has more lines of code than a Boeing 787. Now, a Boeing 787 flies at 600 miles an hour at 36,000 feet, and it holds about 300 people under it, give or take. That has about 12.5 million lines of code. The code, I0. This what's in my hand is about 1 million lines of code. Any guess or idea of a 2016 F-150? How many millions of lines of code? It's 150 million lines of code, and that's a 7-year-old model. So you have 6 computers communicating on 3 different networks, and this is all for what? We have to prepare these vehicles for self-driving. That goes along with the electric vehicles as well, because it's no longer just a button to roll down your window. You have to have a semiconductor in there that your phone, it's also you can control from your phone, roll down your window. And I say all this because I just explained to you how many lines of code in an F-150 and how difficult it is to fix these vehicles. And the quickest way for us to shrink growth and shrink the growth of Columbus, Ohio is make mobility expensive or difficult for the community, right? So we have to find the people that are willing to work on these vehicles. And an automotive technician was with the old mechanic in the back. Those days are numbered. They are the smartest employees at our dealership. They're smarter than the guys sitting up here. They're problem solvers. So how do we have to get workers to work on the most technologically advanced vehicles that we have ever seen. So this is a huge progression. So we have mentor programs where we teamed up with Columbus State, and we created programs with Columbus State to find technicians. An automotive technician is the most important person at our dealership because I could teach somebody how to sell cars pretty efficiently in 6 months, maybe 3 months, but it takes a full 2 years for a technician to understand how to work on a vehicle. And that's where it comes into the training, the special tools. And we have to address that because that's our obligation as car dealers to the community is we have to make sure mobility stays affordable. We don't have public transportation. We have CODA that sit around here. We don't have trains. We don't have subways. So we have to make sure mobility is cheap. So the great thing about it is Columbus State and a lot of automotive dealers is we're focusing on making sure that we have enough technicians and providing great careers. The days of $100,000 a year technician 15 years ago was nonsense. It's commonplace now. It's a wonderful career, and it's wonderful for anybody you talk to. It has changed so dramatically different. They're part IT, part detective. I don't know where that rattles. The rattle, it's rattling. It's in the back. I don't know. Part detective, part HVAC specialist. You have heating and cooling. Part of, did I already say IT? Part mechanic. You actually have to fix the vehicle. And part of this is just John Wayne. You got to figure it out on the fly. So it's very, very difficult to work on a car. So what we are facing is a shortage of technicians, automotive technicians. We need as many as we can possibly get. And not just for the Ricart family, for everybody in Columbus, Ohio. I'll go back to it, make sure mobility is affordable so Columbus can grow and continue to grow. Because we're going to see about 1 million people in the next 20 to 30 years. And we have an obligation.
Yeah, nationally, there's a 75,000 technician shortage every year for the next 5 years. Through retirement, people pass on, et cetera, et cetera. But the technicians now, when you meet them, they don't even have grease on their shirts. They don't have grease. You think of a technician, you think of the gas station technician, but these are more highly intelligent, highly trained. Well, sure, you still have to do oil changes, and I'll talk about that a little later too. But the fact is, they're very, very smart, and so we're spearheading this thing. We have some other dealers with us, the Germain families with us, the Myers families with us. We're just gonna take this thing and just do it ourselves, you know. My dad always says, if you're waiting on somebody to come through the door and make you a success this afternoon, you're gonna wait a long time. You gotta go out and do it yourself, right?
So
he told me one other thing. I mentioned it to him. I said, my dad passed away in '99. The older I God, he was smart. You know, the older you get, your parents get smarter. He says, don't let the same dumb person, don't let the same dumb person take up your time twice. Think about that. Don't let the same dumb person take up your time twice. So there's 200, everybody's wondering, you know, what's going to happen with electric vehicles. And you got to roll back to Jared while we're working on these internal combustion engine vehicles too, because there's 315 million. There's actually more cars in the United States than people that can drive them. You know, that our population is like 300 some million. There's 300 some million cars. But you know, how many people are over 18 or 16 to drive them, right? So everybody's got a couple cars in the driveway. So I'm sure you all do, you know. So what you know, most of those are internal combustion. We got about 8 or 10 million of them are battery electric vehicles right now. That means you got another 300 million internal combustion engines. Average life on the road now is 12.7 years. 12.7 years how long people keep their vehicles. So it's going to be a while for this fleet. They call that fleet turnover. You know, how long is it going to take to turn the fleet over? That's the reason these aggressive mandates in California are crazy. You read about them. It's not your imagination. They want to be 30% battery electric vehicles by 2030. Then they moved it to 2035. They'll end up moving it to 2045 because they don't know what the hell they're talking about. You know, it's just this aspiration they want to have. You know, anybody can aspire to be anything in life, but the fact is the public decides on what they're going to buy. You decide on what the manufacturer is going to build. Growing up, Ford, Chevrolet, and Chrysler were the only three shows in town. They built a car, and you had to buy what they made, right? You didn't have a choice. You had to, hopefully they came out with something you liked. Not anymore, not with all these manufacturers they have. So that being said, the public is going to dictate how fast this battery electric vehicle transition is going to happen. It's all based upon charging. You know, I call it charging anxiety. It's not range anxiety, it's charging anxiety. Can I get it charged? Where can I get it charged, et cetera, et cetera. And that's going to roll out here in the next few years. You're going to see a dramatic change here by the end of this year on our federal administration's outlook on this thing, because they're way behind the eight ball on this thing, and they know it. They came out with these new tax incentives and they've done nothing. Did they change any of your attitudes out there? Didn't change anybody's attitude. So we'll see what rolls out with that in the future. But in the meantime, it seems as though hybrids are real popular. Internal combustion engines are going to be around a long time. And like Jared said, you think a regular car with internal combustion engine is difficult? Put an electric motor with it. How many more lines of code does that have? Now you got electric and you got gas. I mean, they're very, very complicated. But
So, speaking of today's business, so what are we facing in today's market? So the pandemic was a shortage of vehicles, which we have never seen before in the automotive industry. It was insanity because forever it was always about market share. We'd always have so many vehicles, and you know, availability was never a problem. Supply was never a problem. You know, when the pandemic hit, we had a shortage of semiconductors and chips and, you know, kind of every kind of different part. So it has put a huge wrinkle in what we know as the automotive world, and the used car market as it sits. Values at one point were more than a new vehicle. You could buy a used vehicle for more than new. The used car market is fluctuating and it is very tumultuous. Why is that? Because it is the first that we've ever faced of this. So the used car market is different completely. Going back to EVs and chargers, we have a slow adoption rate in Ohio of EVs comparatively to California, Florida. The high standards of CAFE standards is where all the electric vehicles are going. And it's not for a lack of us not wanting to sell it. We want to sell whatever the manufacturer sends to us. We want to make sure whatever makes the customer happy, they have it. But the adoption rate in Columbus, Ohio is low. And the manufacturers that we sell, the adoption rate of electric vehicles is pretty low as well. It could be because close to 40% of the charging stations on the charging network across the United States of America don't work. So I just talked about technicians for automobiles. We have a new sector of technician, an electrician, that's going to fix these chargers. So we are in the process of making sure that those are working.
yeah, that's the truth, Jared. But if you think about it, our goal is to have 500,000 chargers. That's the government's goal, to have 500,000 public chargers in the thing. So they're about 100,000 right now. 40% of them don't work. So if they're going to get to 500,000, they're going to have to get a lot of people to work on it. You know, they don't last forever. By the way, the automobile dealers, when we decided to sell Nissans that have electric vehicles, or Kia or Hyundai or Ford or Chevy, we have to have chargers as required by the manufacturer. You know, all of them. So the dealers across the country have spent $2.2 billion putting in chargers in their facilities, like a gas pump, to be able to charge them too. So the dealers are all about. I always told everybody, I told this to regulatory folks in DC, I said, you know, automobile dealers, we'll sell you a Fred Flintstone mobile. And so you can kick it down the road. We don't care. You know, we're there just to give a customer what they want. If they want to kick a car down the road, then they can. Or you can buy electric or gas or whichever it is. So we're 100% behind electric. And many of you that have bought a car from a dealer here in the last couple of years, you've seen that. You know, they have electric charging, they have electric cars, they have models you can choose from. But as I said before, the customers are going to be the ones that dictate that rollout speed. Right now, California under mandate is running behind the eight ball. New York is, and so is Florida. But let me ask you something. if you don't want an electric vehicle and you live in California, you'll probably go over to Arizona and buy one and then bring it back, won't you? So I mean, you know, we're gonna have to have a federal kind of an outlook on this thing, and all the states are gonna have to get their heads together to make this thing. If the sustainability issue is that important to us, which it should be, then we need a more comprehensive plan than just throwing money at it. Go ahead, Jerry.
So kind of another thought on EVs is, I think we are going to have a slow roll. So we're internal combustion, then we're going to go to hybrid, and then we're going to go to EV. Does everybody in this room notice how Toyota wasn't flaunting their brand new EVs? Well, there's a good reason behind this, all right? So for every battery powered vehicle, the battery that's in the Lightning that my dad drove in today, fully electric, guess how many pounds of earth we have to remove to fix it, to find that battery? The rare minerals in that battery. We have to remove 500,000 pounds of earth for one battery. So Toyota had that mindset and the outlook of, if I'm gonna have to remove 500,000 pounds of earth for one battery, if I'm gonna remove that 500,000 pounds of earth, how about I do like 5 or 6 batteries or hybrids? And we're still removing the same amount, but we're, instead of just one vehicle getting the benefit of electric vehicle, we have 5. And I guess that begs the question of, if we're doing electric vehicles to save the earth and save the atmosphere, then what about the ground we're ripping up? So where's the give and take here? And that's the question overarching that I have. Electric vehicles are going to be spectacular. They're expecting a SAR, which is the seasonally adjusted retail rate for the automotive industry. Back in 2018, 2019, it was about 18 million, 17 million. They're expecting between 13 million to 16 million new vehicles being sold in America. So this year, they're expecting a good year for vehicles. Now that's hybrids, that's electrics, that's fully gas vehicles. And what you'll see with these manufacturers, and in order to sell a F-450, which we love selling F-450s, that helps the community, that helps the businesses, that help like HVAC companies or electric companies, put together this city and keep them moving. We're in a position now, we want to sell F-450, we have to sell EVs. So we're all in on this. I always get intrigued by looking at the way in which we are changing the way in which we are buying the vehicles and the customers. So speaking about new vehicles, we always talk about APR and interest rates. So prime interest rate on January of 2018, on average for new vehicles sold across the United States of America was 5%. And in October of 2023, the national average for prime rate for a customer buying a new vehicle across the United States of America was 7%. So it's only gone up 2 points. Now those 2 points over a 72-month term that's a lot of money. I understand that. But the perception, the mindset is APRs are out of this world. They're not as completely out of this world as we were in 2015 or 2018, 5 years ago. So I guess what I'm getting at is perception is interest rates are through the roof. You can't buy anything. Well, it's not far off from where we were 5 years ago, because our minds always go to 0%. And I got to be honest with you, I don't think we're going to see too many 0% in the future. We've been spoiled with interest rates over the past 20 years, and myself included, for a mortgage rate or whatever else could be. But interest rates are a big buzzword. I don't see a huge issue with it, but it is preventing people from buying vehicles currently. It's just a different, difficult environment. And I'll let my dad speak more about higher level when it comes to federal and agency.
I love the federal government. They're fun to deal with. No, the industry porpoises, like all of our industries porpoise, you know, they go up and down, just like the stock market. You can't pay attention to that. But the automotive industry is extremely important to the United States. Everybody knows that. Federally, you know, all the road tax you get to build all these highways and things come out of gasoline. So how are we going to pay for all these road repairs and bridges? I guess we have like 60 or 70% of them are rated D or lower as far as safety. How are we going to pay to fix these bridges when we don't have any taxes coming from the fuel that we're pumping? It's quite the conundrum. So to figure it out, they're going to see the. I mean, I have 2 BEVs. I drive battery vehicles, but you're going to see the federal government's going to put a usury tax on it. All these cars you have right now, anything built within the last 8 years, 10 years, is all connected. you know, connected through Wi-Fi and through, they're connected. So it adds a lot of opportunity for you to be able to do Apple streaming on your stereo, things like that. But it also makes it easy to be tracked. Everybody can track your vehicle anymore. You know, all these vehicles are trackable because they have modems inside of them. They have several modems. And you're going to see usury tax. That's what the federal government's headed to right now. So you're not going to pump any gas in the car. You're just going to charge it every night. And then as you use your car, they're going to know exactly how many miles you're driving. And then you're going to get taxed on that. That's about 10 years down the road. But I've seen that. I've been with the Department of Transportation. That's how they're thinking. Because there's no other way they can make up for the fact they can't measure the electric that you put in your car at home when you charge your car. They don't know if you're charging your car or you're running your air conditioner. They don't know how to do that. You know, so that's going to go on down the road for us too. But how about some questions for you? Because I know there's a million different angles we can take here. Go ahead, yes.
Yes, sir. What do you think is the future of hydrogen cell vehicles?
What's the future of hydrogen cell? I drove one from Honda about 12 years ago at the LA Auto Show. I took it out on the 405 and I punched it and about tore my head off. Those things are fast. They're fast because it's an electric motor powered by hydrogen, right? Stability, cost, they're fairly expensive, you know. And stability and cost, and also driving hydrogen down the road. It's a little bit like propane. So, you know, they are combustible. So as soon as they get the safety down on the things, they're fine. By the way, you're going to see a lot of these electric vehicles, hydrogen. The first application, which I did see too out in Colorado, is in a semi-truck. That is commercially is where it has its best application, right? Because you can control it at the hub, you can fuel it, you can put it on the road, you can drive it down the freeway, and it's in a controllable environment. You put a hydrogen car in a Honda on a 17-year-old kid high and let him fly around the freeways, you got a problem. You see what I'm saying? There's two different applications. So they're going to start commercially first. Anything else? Yeah.
Are we done with compressed natural gas cars or whatever?
Question is compressed natural gas. It's always going to fill a role because its application is to internal combustion engines, right? There's still going to be a lot of internal combustion engines on the road. And it's very cost efficient actually with CNG to be able to transfer those internal combustion engine that runs on petroleum into compressed natural gas. You lose about 15% of your power, which is a problem, you know, if you're towing or things like that. But compressed natural gas is fine too, but you're still burning greenhouse gases. So it kind of doesn't really hit the objective our government wants to have, is to have, you know, lower greenhouse gases, because you're burning petroleum or natural gas or diesel or whatever they are. You know.
I think you've seen a lot of the manufacturers. So lithium ion is not the solution that we're going to be using for the future. So like Toyota and Nissan announced, as well as I think Honda, solid state batteries. Now it gets into the world of cost efficiency and how do they make it so a solid state battery can hold a lot more pack, but it doesn't know how to distribute it evenly. So it's the discharge of the battery. Solid state batteries are where we're going to be, where we're heading. And a lot of manufacturers are working on those. It's just a matter of cost efficiency, and lithium ion is here right now, but it's not going to be here 10 years from now.
Yeah, well, it'll probably be here in a different application because it'll get cheaper. Lithium will get cheaper. But if you see the batteries in automobiles, they weigh thousands of pounds. They're not cheap. They're not light. But it's just a whole series of little AA batteries they put in there. I'm not kidding you. That's what the inside of these batteries look like. That AA batteries. Now, lithium is a fluid. You know that. It's a soft fluid. Solid state means it's solid. So that means it doesn't develop heat when you charge it and doesn't develop heat when it discharges. That's the answer. But we're about 5. I've seen the batteries at Nissan. I was just in Vietnam. I've seen the technology. They're all excited about it. It's a little bit like your kid when he tells you he's going to get his grades turned around in high school. He just doesn't really give you a time when it's going to happen, right? So, you know, they all have these aspirations of how fast these solid state batteries are going to come. I hit a nerve on that one. So, but they know that they are going to come. Now, we've had solid state battery. Remember your old RCA television had solid state technology, right? That was a big thing. So it's been around forever. they gotta figure out how to put it in the battery technology, we all set on it. So, there's billions, let me tell you, billions of dollars the government's spending on everything having to do with, sustainability right now, just billions of dollars. Our taxpayer money is just, it's staggering. And they just spend it, don't even, I mean, it's like they just take off and go. I remember back in the 60s, we're gonna put a man on the moon. That was a big initiative. Let's put a man on the moon, right? We had a big man on the moon. This is exponentially more expensive, exponentially more investment than we had to put a man on the moon, is to go to a sustainable environment. Which I think none of us would say it's not a good idea. It's just the fact that we can't put it on the backs of the American public that they can't afford it. You know, rich people can afford an electric vehicle. But how's one of these waiters or waitresses going to be able to afford to buy one? Right? How are they going to get back and forth to work? You know, you got to have a little sensitivity to that. Any more questions?
How do we, as a country, compare to other countries in the world that are making automobiles?
Compare, I'm sorry?
How does the USA compare with other countries that are making automobiles and using them?
Okay, well, the big threat now is BYD. The Jeff O'Hank, our chairman last year, the NADA just got back from China. He went through the BYD factory. We all know that Berkshire Hathaway has a big position in BYD. They're the largest automobile manufacturer in the world right now. China does.
Excuse me, I don't know what BYD
is the name of the company. It's a Chinese automobile manufacturer, just like Ford or General Motors. They call it BYD. You know, so that's what they're doing. But they built almost 12 million vehicles last year. 77 million new vehicles are built worldwide every year. About 77, 78, 76 million. And they built 12 million of them. Yeah, Ford built 2 million. Chrysler built 2.2, 2.2, GM about 2.5, Toyota about 8, Honda about 3. They built 12. And Cummins, they built 20% of the vehicles in Mexico last year. BYD built them. Fully electric vehicles. 20%. They built 8% of them in Europe. You can fact check me. I spoke to the Ohio State Fisher School, and I'm talking to the students, and they're all sitting there playing with their phones. And I told the professor afterwards, I said, I don't think they like me. I mean, Christ, they're playing on their phones the whole time. He goes, oh no, Mr. Ricart, they're just fact checking you. So you got your phone out. I know you're fact checking me, but those are the facts. So BYD's big. They're a big manufacturer. I was just in Vietnam and VinFast, same thing. They're funded by China. You know, they're building battery electric vehicles. In Europe, they're real big, real popular in China. I mean, Chinese vehicles popular in Europe because they don't have any trade restrictions. There's no chicken tax. Ship as many in there as they want. That's gonna change, I'm sure, at some point in time. But Mexico, 20%. I mean, within 2 years, I built 20% of vehicles down there. Yeah. And that's the other trade issues we have, is we're trying to protect the United States. Yet, I can tell you from experience that we're in a global economy for whatever you want to make. I'll guarantee every shirt on your back, most of them aren't made in the United States or made somewhere else. Your shoes are made somewhere else, right? Everything in your house is made somewhere else. We're in a global automobile economy. We're just the same thing. There's no difference. So we have to have this balance, you know, what we protect. You know, sometimes be careful what you ask it for. You might get it. You might not be happy with it. But BYD is a huge threat right now because they came into this market within 3 years. VinFast in Vietnam went from scratch, had no factories, within 3 years, building 135,000 cars a year from scratch. Didn't even have a car. Wasn't like you came to the United States like in Alabama, like Mercedes-Benz, and built a plant and started building Mercedes-Benz. You've been Mercedes-Benz for 100 years. They've never built a car. And in 3 years, they built 135,000 cars and growing. They're building a new plant in South Carolina right now. They're going to make 350,000 cars down there. So this compression, Jared mentioned, this compression you have with all these different models and all these different choices everyone's going to have, it's Armageddon in the car business because you know they know that the richest, most profitable market in the world is the United States. So they're gonna put their best products, their best people, their best engineers, they're bringing it to the United States. Yeah.
You made a question or a comment earlier about the American education system and how it might be improved. Can you share some comments on that?
Well, I think, I'm an Ohio State grad, go Bucks, love Bucks. So, I believe in education. Our family believes in education, but what we've lacked is I call it the hands-on education for a lot of our kids. And now, when it goes from service technicians to working on HVAC, to building buildings, to construction, to whatever it may be, I call it using your hands business, you know, not your fingers. Using your hands, not your fingers. So I think that's part of the thing. I think that when I grew up, hell, we had industrial arts class. I don't know if they have industrial arts classes anymore. Yeah. So I mean, I know Jerry can speak to that, and that's the reason he married up with Columbus State quite a few years ago, to try to make it affordable, so that earn and learn these kids can go into school and tell them how it works.
Yeah, you're hitting on something, just skilled trades in general. I think, we need more skilled trade jobs. I mean, the country has grown. We need more electricians, HVAC specialists, automotive technicians. So, we put together a 1-year program where we wanted to make sure that the student, when they graduate high school, 18 years old, you're supposed to make a lifetime decision. Do I work? Do I go to school? I mean, we're not ready for that. Most of us, I wasn't, you listened to me earlier about marriage. I wasn't ready for that. So, what I'm getting to is, we offered a program where they go to school and they work with us 3 days a week, and they have a mentor, and we are making sure that they're graduating. And then when they finish that year program, as long as they stay with us, we pay for it. We pay for their education, part of their associate's degree, and then the asset program, pay it in full. They leave school with an associate's degree and a master's degree. Was a master Ford technician. Hey man, they got something to fall back. You never know what the world is going to be. We have to help these kids
And
get through
no
school.
debt.
And no debt. Because
They're
ultimately,
making money right out of the gate. They can support a family, they can buy a car, they can move out of mom and dad's basement, which means a lot.
but I actually after this, I get a chance to go to Skills USA. Whenever you get an opportunity, skilled trades is what this country needs. And it's a wonderful, wonderful way to make a living. If we can pump that into the education system instead of 4-year degree, it's not for everybody. So let's get these skilled trades, and you know, that way we keep Columbus moving. I talked about it. I have an obligation to keep Columbus moving. These students have an obligation to keep their community moving. Is there any other questions?
I was gonna give you my pitch on education. I'll give it to you in 30 minutes. I think we need to go year round on education, pay the teachers more, be able to have classes all the way. There's a lot of kids in Latchkey right now aren't getting 3 meals a day, especially urban schools. Start them off in the morning, give them breakfast, give them lunch, give them dinner, get more teachers, pay the teachers more, run them all the way through 5 o'clock. So when they hit the door at home, they look at mom and dad and say, man, I had a good day today. You know, I learned a lot, went through all my classes. And if I'm not playing sports, or I'm not playing in the band, or I'm not doing this, I'm learning a trade or something else, we need to get our unions involved. They need to bring people in there to work with these kids in the afternoon, teach them how to be electricians, bricklayers, construction workers, drywallers, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All the trades. What's wrong with that? Bring them right into the school system. I mean, I think that, you know, that's the education system you have in Japan, China, Europe. How much time you got? Just go around the world. We're giving these kids 3 months off. Listen, all of us, when you took summer off, I know I had a lot of fun during the summer, but I mean, when you hit the road back in September to go back to school, it takes 30, 60 days to get those wheels turning again. So we're really not doing these kids a service, telling them to just go home and be a lifeguard somewhere. But I'm all for lifeguards. I'm all for them. I'm just saying that we need to keep the education process steady. Yeah.
We had a question right here.
Yeah, I didn't.
One more.
Okay. I look under the hood of the Lexus hybrid, and I look under the hood of the Lincoln hybrid, and they both look like they've got a lot of the same parts in them. There's a lot of shared technology. With the manufacturers, which one is making the easiest one for the techs to work on, that you don't have to remove 18 pieces to get to the one piece?
I know. The Fred Flintstone mobile. Easy. Yeah, what the-
I think you're hitting on a lot of things. The complexity of these cars, I'd love to give you an answer. I think the complexity is very difficult in all of them. You know, you can go say a GM because it has a pushrod V8 compared to a modular V8, which has dual overhead cams. That might be a little bit easier, but as we're going through this, the technology and the difficulty, a lot of our fleet and commercial customers that have businesses, they used to have people that were able to fix their vehicles. They had their own technicians. The amount of training and the amount of knowledge and the amount of know-how that goes into fixing today's vehicles, the gentlemen that they had in their shops are no longer able to fix it. So to answer your question, the complexity on all of them are extremely difficult to work on. So they all look the same. They all operate the same, and they're all very, very difficult to work on.
Take for example, you know, they're very competitive. So as soon as that first Lexus came off the line, Ford bought one, GM bought one, Stellantis bought one, they bring it down, they tear it down. I've been up to Ford through their facility, they tear all the competition car down, tear them all down, go all the way through them. There's some patented things they can't do, obviously, there's some technology, but they know exactly what everybody else was building. When Tesla came out, every manufacturer bought a Tesla and came down, tore it all apart, you know. So the technology gets better every year, but as it gets better, it's a little bit like everything else in your house. The more buttons that are on it, the more confusing it is to use. So they're pretty. It's pretty interesting. We're going to be in a lot of fun. By the way, they've never been any more dependable than they ever have too. Automobiles right now are considering all that technology and everything. You compare that with a 1975 or 1985 or 1995 car. These things are bulletproof compared to those things. You know, I remember you had a 12,000 mile warranty. The warranty on these new cars is 100,000 miles. 100,000